Hey everybody, Bryan here again on a nice Sunday morning, about 70 degrees here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Taking a walk through kind of the edge of Lawton Park. I'm going to pause here a second before I move forward. This whole area back here, during our yearly festival, whatever we're going to call it, there's a big flea market that takes place out here. It's really cool. My wife and I go to it every year. Off in the distance, you may not be able to see it too well, but there's a place called Science Central. Educational location for kids to go to and learn more about science, STEM, things like that. Really cool. And Lawton Park is really a good hub for me because I can go off in a lot of different directions. Being that this is downtown, a lot of little things to look at, paths to take. I enjoy it quite a bit, even though I'm not too terribly fond of the downtown area, for a variety of reasons. My wife and I were out yesterday, and we decided to take a walk around, not necessarily right here, but probably a good quarter mile south of here. We did over, I think it was 15,000 steps or something like that. Had a good time doing it, but she and I both commented that the way the downtown area has changed over the years, not really to our taste. A lot of development for almost like a gambling sort of thing. Oh, by the way, River Greenway, we're going to be walking by the river here. A lot of this pathing that goes along the river or over the river, just called the River Greenway. And this is what kind of branches out into the other trails that go around the city. It's excellent for bike riding. So if you're a adamant bicyclist, you will probably like our city quite a bit. But anyways, kind of the main point to this, we love our city. It's changed quite a bit in the past probably 10, 15 years. Not always for the better, we feel, but hey, that's how it works, right? There's a nice little heron out there. I think it's a heron or a crane. One of the two. It's out there in the water. A bit low today in the river. Well, we've had such nice weather, no rain the past week or so, our rivers get really dried up. And probably as this end of spring comes and we get into summer, you'll see this quite a bit. We have really dry summers. We'll have long stretches of time where we just don't get any rain. So here's what I'm kind of thinking about today by way of kind of what I want to get into. I'm going to keep this kind of lighthearted, I think. Man, it's just a lot of trash down there. Kind of gross. I'm going to be doing a lot of pausing because being a Sunday, there's going to be a lot of people out and about. And as you know, I don't like to video people. I want to see landscapes and critters running around and stuff like that. So I apologize in advance for that. Today I want to keep it lighthearted. Past few videos have been kind of serious for me, even when I don't intend them to be. But I was with my wife yesterday morning, and we're talking about work. And we're talking about being on a team and kind of the things that we deal with in an office setting or in a team-based workspace setting. And she and I are really tired of the kind of like the small talk sort of vibe, where if you see someone in the hallway and you pass by, it's one thing to say hi, but it's another thing to interrogate someone and say, oh, how you doing? How you doing? How was your weekend? What is your weekend looking like? What did you do this weekend? I've grown really averse or anti that sort of communication. It just doesn't sit well with me. I don't feel right asking people those things or answering those questions. It's not something I I feel comfortable doing. It rubs me the wrong way. And I prefer to not take part in that. And it's hard to tell people these sort of things because in one way they're correct in that it's just a greeting. It's just a nice way of acknowledging someone you come across, acknowledging a person that you pass in the hallway or in a room, something like that. But I feel it's kind of a compulsion to do that. Like you're hurting someone's feelings by not acknowledging their presence. And I don't want that to be the case. I'm going to pause the talk to show off this. This is the old fort. Of course, this is where we get our city's namesake. There are events here every year, especially around the fall. Some haunted fort tours and interesting goings on pertaining to the fort. And as cool as this looks, what I'm going to direct your attention to is way back in the distance. That building there, it looks like a fortress. That's actually a water filtration station. There's a path that goes beyond there. I can take my bike on that. If I take it far enough, I will go eastbound into New Haven, which is a suburb city to Fort Wayne. Nice little town. A lot of people live there. Back here to the fort, if you notice this, there's this kind of hill that goes up and back down again. That was done by design so that the people who were defending the fort could see people coming up first before they get down to the walls here, so they could kind of prepare to defend. Kind of neat how that worked. Very clever defense tactic. They're doing some renovations on the fort right now, adding some things, taking care of some stuff. Those looks like chimneys or whatever. They not looking so good. I'm not a huge fan, though, of this sort of history. I'm not really a history guy. I appreciate it, I just don't get into it. Especially as it concerns certain aspects of American history. The Revolution isn't too bad of a subject for me, but I don't really get excited about it. It doesn't do much for me. All right, back down the hill, back to small talk. So one of the reasons why I bring this up is if you are a person who is fine with working on a team, doesn't feel any sort of anxiety or levels of caution when doing so, things are actually pretty okay in that sort of work environment. But it's when people start being a little pushy with their with how cordial they are, that's when I have trouble. And it's because I tend to treat things very literally, I guess. So if someone says to me, "Hey, how you doing?" I feel like I need to answer the question. I don't first recognize it as just a greeting in passing, because they could have just as soon said hi. But as soon as they say something like, "How you doing?" or "How was your weekend?" it feels like an interrogation, and I'm going to respond accordingly. But they're not really looking for that. And I've wondered if this is a cultural thing, if this is a regional thing. I sometimes refer to it as an Indiana Midwestern thing. How you doing? How you doing? That sort of thing. Some other areas might be, "What's up?" And even that, I take that as a question, and I feel compelled to divulge my day for them. So it's tough for me to gauge what it is they're actually going for. Because in my mind, if you just want to say hi or acknowledge someone, just say hi. That's it. This bridge that I'm on goes to Headwaters Park, which is, creeping closer to the center of the town. This bridge is kind of cool here. Now, the bad thing about this, if you're not from Fort Wayne, if you don't know this area very well, this is a high density area of vagrants, wandering folks, the unhoused, if you prefer that term to the other one. And I've got to be careful. We were here for a field trip this past school season. The social studies teacher did a really nice job with arranging a kind of a scavenger hunt for the kids. We come downtown, we'd get used to using compasses and following paths and identifying landmarks and things like that. Well, we came across this bridge from that direction, and there was a guy sitting right there on the bridge with a dog, and he had all these bags and, the typical features of someone who doesn't really have somewhere to go and has chosen this as their stopping point. So I had to kind of get in front of the kids and direct them around this person. Now, thankfully, the guy didn't do anything bad, but yeah. There's a little bit of a maze here. I don't know if you noticed that, but as soon as I talked about that stuff, someone appeared in my view who was kind of sleeping on the steps back there. I'm not going to disturb anybody. I can only imagine how it is to live that life. Don't want to compound it with stress. So I'm going to walk this way, kind of show off this area. But that's what I'm talking about. There's just a lot to look out for. This is northern Headwaters Park. It's a nice little fountain over there. Kind of a makeshift splash pad for some of the kids. And they like it quite a bit. This area, during the summertime, again, during the festival period, this will be filled up with carnival rides, a midway, that sort of thing. A lot of fun things to do. I'm a big fan of rides. I like carnival rides. I like county fairs, things like that. I don't get to go to them very often. But when they arrive in our town, I will make an effort to go if the price is good. Excuse me. Last year, there was this company that came through, and they advertised this big event, big amusement park sort of setting, and all these rides and things, but then the tickets were like $25 just to get in the gate. And you get a temporary tag where you get, just a few rides, and you have to keep, we call it reloading the tag, more or less. It just doesn't seem right. Kind of goes against the family nature of this, which is what our town is really known for. This road over here is one of the main thoroughfares through Fort Wayne. This is it cuts right through downtown. This goes south. This will go all the way. If you follow this road all the way south, you will go to where I was over there at the Safety Village. And I think I might head this way, kind of back to where I was, but I want to show off the bridge here. It's a beautiful bridge. It is called the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Bridge or something like that, which is unique considering he was only here once, and for a short period of time. He was doing some sort of short speech at a church here in town. That was it. But when you're a city planner and you're trying to dress up your city. You want to name things after noteworthy people, no matter how minuscule their connection is to the city. So, but nevertheless, it's still beautiful. At night, it lights up. And of course, you have the people that are going to try to destroy it with graffiti and leaving trash all over the place. It's hard to manage other people, as you would imagine. So it kind of gets on my nerves to see these things that we're paying for just being utterly destroyed. But there's the placard. And here's the bridge itself. It's quite nice. And when it lights up at night, it's quite beautiful. If I go back this way, it just takes me back to where I was at Lawton Park. I think I'm gonna try to cross right here. So I should be able to. Yeah. Nobody coming. Now there's an official walkway over there for pedestrians. But I'm not going to go all the way down there. Here's kind of a back end of the other side of Headwaters. This too is filled with a lot of stuff during festival time. Usually vendors selling their wares, local artisans, that sort of fare. Rides and fun on one side of the street, and then a bunch of stuff on the other. I don't like to come over on this side too much, but I like these little trails. It's kind of nice. That is, if there aren't, wandering folks there to kind of ruin the experience. Okay, I've got a little bit of extra time here before I transition to the next area. And I've thought a lot, back to the talk about small talk and working in a team-based system, I've thought about what it is that would cause someone to reject small talk. And depending on where you look, it comes down to your sort of level of intelligence. And I don't mean being smarter than other people, but if you're in tune with the way people behave, if you're a good critical thinker and sort of possess an analytical mind, you're probably going to be a little more in tune with these things, and they're probably going to bother you. I don't really like small talk, and I think it's because there's such a limit to it. It's so surface level. And if there are people that I like, I will give a hi and then move on from. But if I'm going to engage them in any way, I want it to be beyond surface level discussion. In a workplace, that can be tough, sure. But I want to make the attempt to elevate small talk to medium talk at least. So something that I've come across where I currently work, again, it's a school, so it's going to be a pseudo-family-esque sort of environment. Because you know how teachers like to hang together and treat each other with almost like a brotherly or sisterly sort of flair, I guess. I'm going to come down here for a bit. See the river. Yeah, this is pretty much our river all the time. Muddy, brown, kind of gross. Some birds down there. Come back up here. Oi. So I'll be in the break room, and what I do on lunch, I'll just have my little sandwich and applesauce and sparkling water, read my book. And this gets into another major sticking point for me. Because I'll ask you this. If you encounter someone at work, let's say in a break room, they're on their break, and they're reading a book, what do? Do you leave them alone? Do you give them a quick hi? Do you start talking to yourself? I know it sounds weird, but it happens. Do you engage them in conversation? Because I think this is a pretty easy answer. I think if you have any consideration for other people, what you're going to do is you're going to probably just acknowledge them. Hey, hi, and let them be. That gets the quick connection out of the way, and you're not taking them from what they want to do on their break. I don't see why this is a big deal. But I've come across people I work with who I'll be the only one in the room. They will come in, they will see, let's say, food has been carried in, and they will start talking to themselves. Like, oh, somebody brought in cookies. Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't know if I should be eating any of these. Oh, no. They're having a full conversation basically with themselves. And they justify it because I'm in the room. The problem is I'm trying my best to not listen to them because I'm absorbed in my private area, which would be my book. Because I think that's the way it should be treated. If we have any consideration for others, presume they do not want to talk. Presume they don't want to have a discussion. But they carry on and they talk to themselves about rationalizing eating cookies or not eating cookies, or commenting on the decor because the party committee has put together some basic decoration for whatever event is being celebrated. And it bugs me. And perhaps I shouldn't be so critical of it, but that's the way my mind processes that, because in reverse, I wouldn't do that to somebody. If I see somebody with a book, okay, you're absorbed in that world, I'm going to leave you be. To me, that's fair. And then there's a person who comes in, they see me with a book, and they come over and they ask, what are you reading? And I already know they don't really care. But again, it's their way. It's their way of attempting to connect. So here's something interesting. In case you didn't know, here are 7 things you need to know. Yep, religion. I keep these things when I find tracts and other materials or whatever. I will keep them. I have a box at home of all those things I look at from time to time because I think they're kind of funny. Free hat with a booger with a burger on it. As you might imagine, being downtown, you're probably going to find a lot of stuff like that sitting around. And I certainly do. Over there's some white bag. You can only guess what's in there. Here's something interesting as well. If I go back this way, and this is where I was kind of at, but I want to turn back. There's a big building back there. That's a corrections building. A lot of our law enforcement will work in there. There's also apartments. They're more to the front here with all the windows and such. But this kind of block of space shared by residents as well as our sheriff and all that good stuff. Now I'm going to keep walking this way because it opens up into an interesting little park area. And as I get over there, I'll talk a little more about these problems that aren't really problems. They're just irritating nuisances. How about that? So someone comes over, sees me with a book. They ask, hey, what are you reading? I try to explain. And of course they have no idea. So I'm not reading like modern fiction. I'm not reading something from Oprah's book club or something like that. I usually read either psychology books, sociology books, various nonfiction pertaining to religious study and critique, or classic literature. And knowing the people that come into the room, that is definitely not their realm. They're the ones who wait around to be told what to be reading, and whatever's popular, they'll pick up that book. Sort of like with music. Can't talk to anybody at school about music because they have no clue. So I try to do the right thing, and I'll explain. All right, I'm reading, like my favorite novel is The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I connect with it very closely. I've read it many, many times, and it's always a good pleasure read for me, though it gets me thinking. It's a good blend of thought-provoking sort of philosophy and really interesting character development. I connect with a lot of characters in that book, but it's hard to explain that to someone who doesn't get into that realm. And it leaves me with the idea of, okay, should I even bother talking about this, or should I make it as basic and as surface level as possible and then move on and hope that they just leave me alone? And a lot of times that's what I do. I'll try to leave them with just a little nugget of information and then let it go. But then there are times I try to engage. There's a guy I work with, really cool guy, I like him quite a bit. He does a great job in his role. And he came in the room once to get I think it was like a pop out of the machine or something. He goes, "Hey, what you reading?" And I explained, "Well, I'm reading The Fountainhead." He goes, "Oh, what's that?" And as I'm explaining the book and the author, really in a basic sense, he's already turning around and going to the door. And he's out the door before I even finish talking. And I'm thinking, why did you even ask me if you weren't going to stay around to be engaged? It ticks me off. I would rather they just ignore me, get their drink, and leave. But again, there's this compulsion to involve oneself with what other people are doing. And I just have a serious issue with that. In any workspace, it could be a school, it could be any office, anywhere where the workforce pretends to be like a family. And it really is. It's a pretend pseudo-family. And in pretend pseudo-families, small talk reigns. I come down here. I am now in one of our new parks, new as in within the past 3 to 5 years, Promenade Park. It's a very beautiful riverside park, not terribly large, but has some nice little things going on. There's this boat here you can take for excursions up and down the river. It's called the Sweet Breeze. Cute little boat. Down here at the dock, what I will do is I will take my magnet and I will start fishing along the edge here. The idea being, as they're getting on the boat, people will drop things into the water. Keys, phones, other objects they might have. Sometimes I'll pull things out of there that are dropped from people at the boat. One time I pulled a chair out of here. It had fallen into the water from a flood we had when this place was first built. And it was interesting because I was down here with my stuff, my gear, and there were kids nearby and they were watching me doing this thing with a magnet. And they saw me grab this chair, because all the chairs here are pure metal. And I pulled it out and it's covered in mud and everything. And some of the kids were like, whoa, and they ran up to their parents and said, you see what he pulled out of the water? It's fun watching the reactions of kids with these things, because they're not expecting it, of course. They don't expect someone to be down here doing that sort of thing. So I do get some attention for doing that. Kind of fun. Here's some other things up here worth looking at. Kind of neat. Again, if you like to be out and about, just wandering around, this is a nice little spot for that. Again, good for families. But as with everything, there is a catch. I have to be strategic about this because there's some folks wandering around. I don't want to get them in the shot per se. So if I come back over this way, there's a nice little shaded, semi-shaded area that is. You can sit, bring some food if you want to. I'm going to double back the other way here in a second, but I want to come up here to show this off. This is kind of cool. If people have taken care of it, which most people do not. Little foosball table if you have a... There's the ball. It's kind of fun. Cornhole, if you want to take part in cornhole. I don't know if they leave the bags out here. Ping pong, if you have ping pong stuff, you can bring that out here and work on the tables. Little Creek bioswale. They specifically planted particular types of plants in here to create a, miniature ecosystem within our city. Kind of nice. It's cool art structure. And here's something that the kids love. Over here, there's a stream, kind of a creek, so to speak. All these standing stones there. You can jump on and have fun with. All stemming from this fountain over here. Again, a really nice touch for this area. It desperately needed something like this. This was normally a severely, what I'll call downtrodden area. And it needed something to give it a little more flavor. So if I were a kid, I'd really like doing this little hop from stone to stone as I go all the way down here. But aside from these things, there are some really cool swings over there. You just want to lounge around for a while, have some fun, sit with your family, do whatever. Really nice addition to our fair city. Now what I'm looking at now is straight downtown. That's the largest building downtown, the PNC building. I'm probably not going to be going that direction, mainly because of all the people that are going to be down there. Again, trying to be semi-private with this as much as I can. So I think I'm going to turn back this way and pick up Southern Headwaters and start heading back across the road here. What you see right here, this is part of that apartment complex that I mentioned before. I'm trying to remember what was here a long time ago. I think this was just one big open area, like a parking lot, maybe small building of some sort. But the city has done a lot by way of adding more residential areas. And they've stuck it mostly downtown here, because the idea is they want to bring more activity down here, drives up kind of the consumerism of the area, generating money, all that stuff. Yesterday, when we were doing my wife and I were doing our walk, we went back south of here, down a street called Broadway. And down there's a big old General Electric building that had been sitting there for like decades. They weren't doing anything with it. And finally, someone decided to take it and renovate it into market space, retail space, business space. And it's beautiful. It's called Electric Works. And when people found out they were going to be doing that, they were getting pretty excited. And naturally so, because it was a really good idea. The problem was, this city is not equipped for that. We are not quite there yet to where we can accept that fully and drive people down there all the time. Unfortunately, this is a Saturday, Sunday sort of town. So throughout the week, we don't have a lot of business down there. They packed it full of restaurants, but they raised the rates. So a lot of them had to leave because they weren't driving enough income and profit to stay there. Couldn't meet their contracts and their rent, so they had to go. When we went there yesterday, there's still a few restaurants in there, some snacky sort of companies and businesses selling very niche sort of foods. Like there's a Greek place down there selling baklava. I don't know if that's really the Fort Wayne vibe. I mean, I like the attempt. It's a good idea. But I think in practice, it didn't quite work the way they had thought. My wife had a good idea about why that was, is because when they created it, the developers were looking for immediate profit. We're going to put this down here, and we're going to earn profit right away. And unfortunately, that's not how it works, especially in this town. We are a very let's put it this way, we're a family-oriented city, still fairly red, and to give us these sort of things, I think, is a bit of a culture shock. And I don't think we're all ready for that yet. I think it's going to take a few generations to get us to a place where we're accepting of all these things. And on top of that, we've got to improve our public transportation. We just don't have good transportation. So if you live downtown, you have better access. So you can just walk a few blocks to get where you want to go. But for those who live in the suburbs, like myself, I have to make special arrangements to go down here. And it's not always easy. Like for me, I can do the walks. Well, not everybody can. So we still have an older population here. They're curious, but they're limited in their movement and mobility. So they've got to get that under control. We don't want to do parking garages all the time, especially when we have to pay out the nose to use them. That's the other thing too. They put interesting things down here. They make it hard to get to. Then once you get here, they make you pay to just be here. And then when you get to what you are going to, in some ways, it underwhelms. I'm going to pause here for a second. There's something going on there. I don't know if you can hear it, but someone kind of coming this way. I'm going to avoid them. Go back here. Yeah, our town is still my home. I still enjoy it. I'm probably going to be here a long time. But there's a part of me that thinks it might be time to move on. But I don't know. I'm still working on my career aspirations, trying to get education down, getting that extra degree taken care of so I can earn a little more money to maybe move on. Where I would go, not sure. Been a lot of places around this country, and I've enjoyed pretty much all of them. So this little walk around, hopefully you took something from it. I know the topic I spoke of was rather limited. Again, it's supposed to be lighthearted. And yeah, I revealed myself as someone who doesn't like small talk at all and would rather avoid doing that if at all possible. But don't take that as I'm antisocial. I'm not. It's just there's certain things that I have a hard time handling. And I think it's, how you doing? And if you think about it, is that really a legitimate question? Do they really care how I'm doing? Or is this just one of those things where rather than saying hi, they default to a question or an interrogation? Kind of depends on the person, I guess. And I think if I know them well enough, I can determine that. But generally speaking, I don't like that statement. I don't do it myself. And I think my time working on a team in a pretend family at work would be a lot better if we resort to the simple 2-letter hi, 3-letter bye, and that's it. What do you think? Do you struggle with small talk? I wouldn't be surprised if you do. If you do, you're definitely safe in letting me know, because I would probably agree. So I think I'm going to cut this short. I'm noticing I'm getting surrounded by folks who would not take kindly to being on camera. So I'm going to shut this down and bid you a fond farewell. Maybe talk to you next week sometime. Take care. Bye-bye.